everybody, QuestWise here, and I want to welcome you to the new channel. Not really a new channel, an offshoot of the QuestWise channel I'm calling Ages and Empires. So the reason I'm doing this, and I've thought about this for quite a long time, it's something I wanted to do for a while, something you might not know about me, but I studied history at Concordia University in Ann Arbor, Michigan, back in the 90s. And my goal was that I was going to become a teacher. I found out much too late that in order to teach what I wanted to teach, being history at the sort of collegiate level, that I needed at least a master's degree. And I was already well into debt. So that dream never really came true. And so this is a channel, an idea for an offshoot channel that I've wanted to do for a very long time. And so what we're going to be doing here is we're talking about the history. We're talking about history in general, across all ages, empires, eras, and how you can use historical war games to learn more about history, and how we can use those games to illustrate ideas and tactics and strategies from historical events. As well as sort of the history of the evolution of wargaming itself, and how you can use those ideas of incorporating gamifying this idea to learn about history and learn about the different important people and the time periods and the situations that have occurred throughout our time as a race of humans. One of the first games that I want to talk about, and this will be in a further video because I'm actually still waiting for it. It's supposed to arrive today. It's out for delivery, but it is called Alexander the Great, and it is an old hex encounter war game that was originally created by Gary Gygax, and that's one of the reasons why I ordered it. I found it through Noble Knight Games. I'll put a link down below to Noble Knight. Noble Knight, they're an amazing company in which you can find all sorts of out-of-print and old war games, board games, role-playing games, all sorts of stuff. But the reason I picked it up is because I had recently become very much mired in chainmail, and I've been working a lot with chainmail, trying to sort of rediscover the roots of the role-playing hobby, going back as far as chainmail, that sort of precursor to Dungeons and Dragons, and trying to figure out what it was about this and that time period, because this predates me by a few years. I was born in 1975, so if you do the math, you can figure out how old I am. But I was born in 1975. This came out well before I did, and I actually missed the sort of height of sort of the hex encounter, or what I like to call bits and chits wargaming, and kind of came into an era when like miniature tabletop wargaming was really starting to take hold. So I wanted to go back and learn a little bit more about this, and then Alexander the Great, the game that Gary Gygax created for a company called Gaiden Games, which is no longer in print. Avalon Hill later republished it, and that's the copy I have coming, is the Avalon Hill edition. But designed it before he created chainmail, before any of the sort of D&D thing had taken off. So I'm wanting to take a look at a deeper dive of that, only because Alexander the Great has always been one of my favorite historical figures, and I think there's a lot to learn about that time period. And being as influential as he was, they're even using still to this day in military strategic classes and instruction, his ideas of how to incorporate warfare, how to think outside of the box, and to use your enemy's tactics against them. So that's why I wanted to take a look, starting with this game about Alexander the Great, and some of the last sort of battles against Persia, and we'll go into that, like I said, when the game gets here. I'll do an unboxing video. But a couple of the books I'm going to be using as sort of reference material for that particular video, and as for my sort of own enjoyment, further enjoyment of that game, is going to be this. This is Alexander the Great supplement for Warhammer Historical. So this is by Jeff Jonas. It was designed specifically for the Warhammer Historical line of miniature tabletop battles. So there's a lot of that in here. There's a lot of pictures of miniatures and whatnot. But there's a lot of great history in here. There's also a lot of great articles on the tactics of both the Persians and the Macedonians or the Greeks at the time, their allies and mercenary troops. So I'm going to be using this, I think, as a great reference. This is a wonderful book if you can still find it. I know it's out of print, but you can find it online, I think in PDF form. That's where I got my copy from, and just had it printed and bound for the Warhammer Historical line. I'm also going to be using, so this is a series of books that were gifted to me when I went off to college by a very dear friend of the family, and I still have all of these, and I love this series. This is the History of Civilization by Will Durant. This one in particular being the Life of Greece. There's like Caesar and Christ, our Oriental Heritage, Reformation and Revolution, I think it's called. There's a whole series of these, and this has been a sort of like encyclopedia series for me as I went through my schooling on history. But there's a great section in this particular volume about Alexander the Great, and this is more about sort of the personalities of history, the philosophy of history, as opposed to sort of like the grand tactical or strategical look at history. And so I want to sort of blend that. And that was sort of an inspiration for me for this channel, was I wanted to blend sort of the philosophical idea behind war and behind history and behind the events that have occurred throughout history, as well as sort of a look at the strategic and tactical employment of those philosophies. So we'll be using a lot of board games. We'll be using a lot of miniature games to illustrate some of the topics that we'll be covering in events. The other one I'll be using, and this has a price tag on it, Great Commanders and Their Battles. I paid $5 for it. I think I got this at like a garage sale or maybe even like a library book sale or something. But this is a great breakdown of just great commanders and specific battles throughout history. And it starts with Alexander and goes all the way through like Ulysses S. Grant and Napoleon and Erwin Rommel. And it just gives you a sort of quick breakdown of different battles. So the one we'll be focusing on with Alexander is the Battle of Gaugamela, which was his fight against Darius III of Persia. And it just gives you some great depictions, strategic options and tactical uses that each side employed during those specific battles. The battles that sort of like really classified these particular people as great commanders. So a couple of books there that I'm going to be using as reference books for our look at Alexander the Great by Garrett Gygax, published by Gaiden Games originally, but then eventually picked up by Avalon Hill. We're going to be looking a lot at Avalon Hill. I've been really delving deeply into the 1970s and 80s wargame market. Noble Knight Games, once again, I'll put the link down below to their website if you have not checked them out before. I've grown after looking at chainmail, really interested in those early days. Shouldn't say early days. I'm going to do a video on the history of the wargaming hobby itself, and it stretches way back to like the 1800s and early 1900s. But the height, I feel like, just looking back at some of the stuff, was really like the 60s into the 70s, and then sort of died in the 80s, especially when role-playing, Dungeons and Dragons became a thing, as well as other board games began to take off. But I felt like that was really the high era, in my opinion, of the hex encounter or bits and chits kind of wargaming, or miniature wargaming as a whole. And we'll take a look at that in a completely different video. But this is completely just a thing for me. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, and it is literally just a way for me to sort of have a creative outlet to talk about history, and something I wanted to do for a long time. So it is not a replacement for the QuestWise channel. It is a sort of addendum. It is an extension of, and like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm going to be calling it the QuestWise Ages and Empires expansion. We'll call it the expansion pack, right? Ages and Empires expansion pack. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, thank you so much. This will be a separate channel, so please go like and subscribe, share with your friends. We're starting from scratch, but again, this is really just a passion project for me. So until next time, I'm QuestWise. Thanks for stopping by. Have a great day.